You reach into your pocket for spare change, but imagine if your employer handed you a bag of white crystal instead. This actually happened. For centuries, Roman soldiers marched across the continents not for gold, not for glory, but for salt. Yes, salt. The same stuff sitting in your kitchen shaker was once so valuable that empires fought wars over it. Men killed for it. And most powerful military force in ancient history demanded it as payment. This is the story of why Roman soldiers were paid in salt and how that strange practice changed the world forever. Let's start with a fact that sounds impossible. In 3rd century BC, a Roman legionary's annual pay was roughly 900 sesterces, but historians have found evidence that portions of this were not always paid in coin. They were paid in salt. The Latin word for salt is sal. The word for soldiers' pay is salarium. Our modern word salary comes directly from this. But here's the question nobody asked. Why salt? Why would the greatest empire on earth pay its warriors in something you can buy for $1 at any grocery store? Because in ancient Rome, salt was not ordinary. It was survival. Let me explain. Before refrigeration, salt was the only way to preserve meat. Without it, food rotted in days. Armies on the march could not carry fresh meat for months. They needed preserved rations. They needed salt. Roman soldiers consumed salt pork, salt fish, and salted cheese. According to the historian Pliny the Elder, writing in 77 AD, there was nothing more useful than salt and sunshine. He was not exaggerating. Salt was also critical for tanning leather, used in every soldier's armor, sandals, and shield straps. It was also used in religious ritual, in medicine, and in water purification. The Roman military machine ran on salt, but here's where it gets interesting. Roman did not have much salt for its own, not naturally, so they built something extraordinary. In 4th century BC, the Romans constructed the Via Salaria, the salt road. It stretched 150 miles from the salt pans at the mouth of the Tiber River to the interior of Italy. This was not just a road, it was an economic artery. Salt was harvested from evaporated seawater along the coast, loaded onto carts, and transported inland. Roman soldiers guarded these convoys because the bandits knew the truth. Salt was as valuable as silver. The historian Livy, writing around 27 BC, described conflicts over salt supplies during the early Roman Republic. Control of salt meant control of armies, and control of armies meant control of Rome. By the time of the empire, salt had become currency. By paying soldiers in salt had another purpose: stability. Roman generals learned a harsh lesson during the Punic Wars against Carthage in 3rd century BC. Soldiers far from home needed supplies they could trust. Coins could be debased, their value could fluctuate, but salt was universal. Salt was constant. A soldier paid in salt could trade it anywhere from Gaul to Egypt to Britannia. It was liquid wealth. The system worked so well that even after coinage became standard, the term salarium stuck. The concept endured. Now, modern historians debate exactly how much Roman soldiers were paid directly in salt versus being given a salt allowance to purchase it. Some scholars like historian Jonathan Roth argue the payment was more symbolic by the imperial period and allowance for purchasing salt rather than literal bags for it. But the principle remains same. Salt equaled value, salt equaled power. And Rome understood this better than anyone. Consider this, in 506 BC, the Roman Republic signed a treaty with Carthage. One of the clauses regulated salt trade routes. Wars were fought, treaties were written, empires rose and fell, all over salt. By the height of Roman Empire under Emperor Trajan in 117 AD, Rome controlled the entire Mediterranean. That meant controlling nearly every major salt production site in the known world. The salt mines of Caradona in Spain, the salt pans of North Africa, the Alpine salt deposits, all Roman. This was not luck, it was strategy. Roman taxes on salt, called the salt fiscale, generated massive revenue. The historian Suetonius recorded that Emperor Augustus reformed the salt tax system to fund his military campaigns. Salt paid for roads, salt paid for aqueducts, salt paid for conquest. And the soldiers who enforced that conquest, they were paid in very resource that made it all possible. The cycle was perfect. But here's something darker. Salt was also used as a weapon. When Rome destroyed Carthage in 146 BC, legend says they sowed the fields with salt, so nothing would ever grow there again. Modern historians debate whether this literally happened. There's no contemporary account, but the symbolism tells you everything. Salt gave life, and salt could take it away. For Roman soldiers, receiving salt was not just payment, it was a reminder of what they fought for. Preservation, purity, and power. By the time Western Roman Empire fell in 476 AD, the salt trade had shaped European economies for nearly 1,000 years. Medieval kingdoms continued taxing salt. The French salt tax, the gabelle, was so hated, it helped spark the French Revolution in 1789. Venice built its entire maritime empire on the salt trade in the Middle Ages. The British Empire taxed salt in colonial India, leading to Gandhi's famous Salt March in 1930. All of this traces back to Rome, to those soldiers marching down the Via Salaria with their salarium in hand. So, the next time you sprinkle salt on your food, remember this. You are holding something men died for. Something that built empires. Something that, for centuries, was worth its weight in silver. Roman soldiers were not paid in salt because Rome was primitive. They were paid in salt because Rome understood value. And here's final irony. We still use their word for it. Every time you receive a salary, you are speaking Latin. You are echoing an economic system perfected 2000 years ago. The Romans are gone. Their empire is dust. But their salt, that's still paying our bills.